for the latest news from the world of radio every Sunday morning at 10:30 on the International Radio Report on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal and online at ckut.ca.
Welcome to the International Radio Report on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal. My name's Sheldon. I am here with Jill. It is Sunday, July the 31st, 2022. We thank you for tuning into our show today. If you'd like to reach us, our email address is radioreport@yahoo.com. We're live streaming and archived at ckut.ca. Our Facebook group, International Radio Report, has 3 new members this week. We welcome Michael, Scott, and Pepe, bringing us to 821 members. If you'd like to join in, go to Facebook, search for International Radio Report, join the group, and participate along with everyone else. Our YouTube channel, if you'd like to listen to the show at your convenience, is International Radio Report, where we have 667 subscribers. You can catch the latest show plus previous editions of the show on the channel. We thank you for tuning in. We have a number of stories from around the world today, starting off with a follow-up story we had announced earlier on a show about the nominees being announced for the annual Radio Hall of Fame Awards. And now we have the list of those who have made the cut. These are the 2022 inductees for the Radio Hall of Fame via Radio World. MS Communications President and CEO Jeff Smulyan is among the 9 people who will be inducted into the Radio Hall of Fame this November. The Museum of Broadcast Communications has announced its 2022 inductees. They are Marv Dyson, he is a radio executive. Lon Helton from Country Countdown USA, which is a syndicated program. Ellen Kay from KOST-FM in Los Angeles. Broadway Bill Lee from WCBS-FM in New York City. Walt Baby Love from Gospel Tracks. Carol Miller from WAXQ-FM in New York City. Chris Mad Dog Russo from Sirius XM. Jeff Smulyan, who we mentioned, from MS Communication President CEO, and Susan Waldman, New York Yankees Radio Network on WFAN, AM and FM in New York. The inductees will be honored in an introductory ceremony in Chicago on November the 1st. The Radio Hall of Fame was founded by Emerson Radio Corporation in 1988, and the Museum of Broadcast Communications took over in 1991. Now, what I found was interesting here is that they're beginning to not just look at regular individual hosts on a local radio station. They're starting to look at syndication and also other types of radio. An example, we're seeing Chris Mad Dog Russo from Sirius XM making it into the Hall of Fame this time round. So it's branching out. They're sort of expanding the definition of radio, it seems, from conventional AM/FM radio stations to other types of radio as well.
Yep, and also, they're calling themselves the Museum of Broadcast, and broadcast is a very broad term. I mean, broadcast can be a broadcast not just on airwaves of radio. It can be a broadcast on the internet over some podcasts and so on. So yeah, opening up, I think, is a good idea, because more and more we're getting all of these choices over different media and different ways of accessing that. And of course, there's some great stuff in there. So we need to look at the big picture.
Yeah, it sort of compares to what we see with the Oscar Awards, that sort of thing, and Emmy Awards now, where they're not just looking at conventional movies or conventional network TV shows. They're looking at Netflix and Apple and Disney and all these other sources that are producing movies or programming that you can get through various means. So the sort of the coverage is expanding quite a bit to take all of that in. The networks, TV networks in particular, are really struggling to get even nominated for some of the things now because of how much is going to other types of services.
I think one of the reasons why it took also some time before we could have other media included in here is the resistance. I mean, all of these radio stations, for example, are probably rolling their eyes saying, no, don't include all of those other types of media. Let's stay radio.
Well, it's probably a lot of people who are voting
Yep.
in these, picking the nominees that are radio people, conventional radio people themselves, and they're trying to keep it that way maybe, but obviously it's expanding. And you've got Sirius XM, for example, with tens of millions of listeners. They obviously deserve to be recognized. Their programming on some of the channels is really exceptional, and the hosts that they have, some that have come from conventional radio that are now there. So I think we're going to start to see more of that in recognizing those people.
So there's a interesting story about the FCC cracking down on long periods of silence. This is by Paul McLean of Radio World. An apparent FCC crackdown on silent radio stations is the focus of a commentary by veteran broadcast attorney David Oxenford. He writes on his blog that the audio division, perhaps concerned about operators warehousing spectrum, seems to be taking an increasingly aggressive position with stations that have been silent for extended periods. Oxenford says the FCC notes that silent stations cannot serve the public interest, even if their silences were authorized. The Commission, he writes, has been issuing only short-term renewals, so has to keep a closer eye on such stations rather than having to wait until the end of the normal 8-year term. He said the FCC is renewing for as little as 20% of a license term. So when commencing any voluntary period of silence for any station, a licensee should be aware that if the station stays silent for a long period of time, its expectancy of a normal license renewal term may be jeopardized. Oxenford went on to note that typically it is underperforming stations that opt to go silent for long periods, while their operators try to determine what to do with them. He wonders what the impact of shorter-term renewals might be. Will operators of troubled stations, especially of troubled AM stations, risk taking those stations silent while trying to find other ways to operate them or to find potential buyers for those stations? Or will they just abandon the licenses, resulting in even less service to the public? Maybe, he concluded, leaving a station with its existing operator, even if it is not operating consistently, may be a quicker way to find a way for a station to return service to the public than will the cancellation of a license. Yeah, interesting. I'm pretty sure a lot of them are using that silence because they have no idea what to do, and maybe they're not very popular, so money isn't there, and they're just trying to figure out, what can I do with this? My personal opinion on this would be that if it doesn't prevent other stations from maybe acquiring a license and getting on the air, maybe it is better to, leave a station that will be silenced from time to time because they're trying to figure out what to do, but at least maybe come back than just have no stations at all.
Yeah, I mean, they at some point in time, they went through the whole process of applying to get the station, and that's sometimes is a difficult thing to do depending on where you're located. If you're in an area where the band is crowded or whatever, and you've managed to secure a spot, you don't really want to give it up unless you absolutely have to. But I think what the FCC is trying to do is force their hand a little bit by shortening the license renewal period to say, look, you got to do something here. So we have seen, I know in the last couple of years, we've seen a number of stations turn in their licenses where they've just sort of given up the ghost and said, look, we just can't make a go of this any longer. So I think this will maybe help to clean up some of the dead wood that's sitting out there. And if by chance, I don't think it happens as much with FM stations, but probably, with AM stations, if they're not going to do anything, they're paying for their real estate where their antenna towers are and all of that sort of thing. And if they've got an office somewhere, just cut your losses and say, look, we gave it a shot, but we can't make a go of it. So I think maybe that's the goal of the FCC here, is to clean these things out and move forward.
One thing for sure, in a big market like Montreal, you don't want to have dead air stations or dead stations that are trying to figure out what to do, because already there's a lot of people out there that are saying, well, I want to have a frequency that I would have my programs on. And, if you can't operate, give the chance to somebody else. And on the FM band, it's a lot more competition, and there are people that want these frequencies. On the AM band, probably, like you say, it's probably there that's happening the most.
Yeah, overall, it's more costly to operate AM than it is FM. I mean, FM, you can use stick up an antenna basically anywhere, and you're going to be able to get your signal out.
Yep.
Whereas with AM, depending, if you've got a station that's patterned daytime, nighttime, you may need space to put up 3 or 4 towers, and it can really get complicated and expensive. So we next go to some interesting radio activity coming out of the conflicted areas of Russia and Ukraine. This comes from the Record by Record Future via Radio World, July 22nd. Ukrainian radio broadcaster hacked to spread fake news about Zelensky's health. 2 radio stations owned by one of Ukraine's largest broadcasters, TAVR Media, were hacked on Thursday to spread fake messages that Ukrainian President Zelensky was hospitalized and in critical condition. TAVR Media, which operated 9 popular stations in Ukraine, told the Record that the music programs of Melodia FM and Radio Bayraktar were interrupted by hackers at around 1 p.m. local time. Cyber criminals tried to hack all 9 stations, but most of the attacks were intercepted by the company's cybersecurity system. In a fake news report, hackers announced that Zelensky was under intensive care and his duties were being performed by the chairman of the Ukrainian parliament. Later that day, Zelensky posted a video on his official Instagram page denying the report. "I'm in my office and I'm healthier than ever," he said. While the attack hasn't yet been attributed to any group, Zelensky has accused Russia of spreading misinformation. They compete to see who can do it better, Ukrainian telecom expert Alexander Glushenko told the Record. Earlier in June, a pro-Ukrainian hacker group hacked a Russian radio station to broadcast the Ukrainian national anthem and anti-war songs. Several Russian TV channels have also been repeatedly hacked to show on-the-ground scenes of the war in Ukraine. The attack wasn't thoroughly planned. The message did not sound like our ordinary news program. The hackers used a robotic voice that spoke in poor Ukrainian and with stylistic errors. Russian hackers and troops are targeting Ukraine's telecommunications infrastructure, both in cyberspace and on the ground. Since February the 24th, the Russian rockets have destroyed 11 Ukrainian radio and television towers, as well as radio centers that broadcast to the occupied territories.
In the conflict, everything can happen, and every side wants to try to trick the other side into having some fake news sometimes and hack into different media outlets.
Yeah, and today they've got new ways of doing it, obviously, with very smart people that know their way around cyber activity. And again, the fact that they're targeting radio stations, again, shows us the importance of those radio broadcasts. They know that a lot of people are going to be listening, putting these stories out. Although, you kind of think if you're hearing it on one station that you might consider, well, I should go check another station, see if they got the same story.
Yeah.
And then you find that, no, it's not there. But, a lot of people listen to one station. So if that's the one they're listening to and they hear the story, they might quite possibly believe it.
I don't think for a lot of people, the first thing that you would think about a radio station itself would be they got hacked somehow and somebody was able to change the program. But
right.
It's possible. Everything's computerized. So what's happening with our sun? Well, this week it was rather quiet. Not a lot of sunspot groups. There's been a little bit of geomagnetic activity. We did reach a G1 geomagnetic storm early in the week, and unsettled conditions at a few times, and it was showing up on the bands because I was tuning around and we could see that propagation was not exactly what I was expecting. Things are quiet right now, and there's a new sunspot that we should keep an eye on. Sunspot group AR3068 that has tripled in size since it actually started to show up. So who knows what that is going to bring us in the propagation, and who knows, maybe solar flares during the week. The sunspot number 50, the solar flux below 100, 93 as we're recording, which is hasn't been that low in quite a while. So a little quiet moment on the sun right now. There is a coronal hole that is going to have some solar wind flowing towards us, and that could affect us August 2nd to August 4th. So if conditions change, you might have some solar wind that are creating some problems with the geomagnetic field. And of course, one of the best ways to really know if propagation is good is to turn on the radio and listen.
Hi, I'm Eric Cottrell of Lynn, Massachusetts. I get my weekly radio news on the International Radio Report on CKUT 90.3 FM in beautiful Montreal.
So we have a little story about DRM, that famous digital mode that we talk about from time to time. And here is a story about Australia that is doing some demonstration about DRM on AM, FM. And this is by T. Carter Ross from Radio World. The Public Service Australian Broadcasting Corporation and its transmission contractor BAI Communications Transmission Network hosted a public demonstration of digital Radio Mondiale broadcasts on June 29th, 2022. ABC highlighted the use of DRM on both AM and FM in Waggarotta, Victoria. According to the DRM Consortium, the demonstration was the culmination of almost 2 years of COVID-impacted work to assess the performance of DRM services on Australia's VHF and medium wave bands. Previously, the Australian Amateur Radio Experimenters Group reported that AREG member Steve Adler, VK5SFA, had been monitoring a very unpublicized digital Radio Mondiale trial on 747 kHz in August 2021. The Australian Communications and Media Authority provided ABC with a license variation to conduct DRM-30 trials from September 1st, 2020 to August 31st, 2022. At the public demonstration, senior representatives from the public, commercial, and community radio sectors, along with regulators and other interested parties, were able to hear and see the capabilities of DRM broadcasting on AM from Dockers Plains and on FM from Mount Barranduda. They were also able to review the transmission equipment at Waggarotta. The demonstration focused on the audio quality offered by DRM, as well as value-added services like station logos, text messages, and Journaline. In the parking lot of the Waggarotta Rovers Football Netball Club, two vehicles were set up with receivers for stationary listening and demonstration of the DRM emergency warning functionality, which can wake up radios in the event of an emergency alert. The third part of the demonstration was a driving test, allowing attendees to switch between the analog and digital signals on both AM and FM to compare audio quality while on the road. According to the DRM Consortium, feedback from the attendees was positive. You know, we talk about DRM all the time. I think on shortwave DRM is a nonsense and should not exist. But on local radio, AM, FM, maybe that could be where DRM could actually be used in some way if it's well done. I am always a little weary of that because I think radio is fine. We should just leave it alone the way it is. We have these million radios out there. But obviously, a lot of people want to try to move on to some more advanced digital modes, get better audio quality, more information out of the same signal. DRM, once again, I'll say it again and again. I don't know who these people are, but they are pushing hard for all of this to happen.
Yeah, they're certainly persistent. That's for sure. Why not keep both? You know,
yeah.
Keep the old one there, the old system, just in case. And you know, for people who are able to use it, I don't know. It's almost like we want to change it simply because we can.
Yeah.
Not because we need to. And we have another similar story also coming from T. Carter Ross of Radio World of a similar situation in the Czech Republic. Czech transmission services company Czech Radio Komunikas, CRA, is testing the DRM medium wave digital radio system on 954 kilohertz. According to a tweet from Marcel Prozaska, Director of Legal and Regulatory Affairs for CRA, the Transmissions are originating from České Budějovice in South Bohemia and operating at a power of 3.16 kilowatts from a 107-meter antenna. CRA states that in a Czech language press release that the test is designed to verify the possibility of using its existing analog transmitters for digital radio broadcasting. It hopes to verify various modulation parameters along with day and night coverage, usable network capacity, and immunity to interference. A CRA spokesperson, Anna Tumova, said the primary goal of the test is to verify the compatibility of our existing AM mid-wave transmitters with DRM. We will evaluate the test results in 2023. Although the DRM consortium is not involved with the Czech trial, Ruxanda Obreja, a chair of the consortium, welcomed it. We're very pleased to see this new digital medium wave test in the Czech Republic and its thoroughness. We are confident that this test will confirm the good DRM performance as recorded daily in India on their 35-plus transmitters and elsewhere. Obreja also noted the potential value of upgrading CRA's analog equipment to support digital radio. The fact that the analog transmitter used can be upgraded to DRM is a bonus and will give confidence to those who want to go digital for wider coverage without replacing everything and investing vast sums of money, especially in the current climate. We're looking forward to the Czech test results due out in 2023. The public service broadcaster is cooperating with CRA in the tests, which are broadcasting CRO's news station, Radio Journal. CRO has steadily decreased its use of AM broadcasting in recent years in favor of FM and DAB+. Although CRA does not have current plans for ongoing DRM transmissions, Tumova said, we're discussing further use of DRM with potential customers.
What's interesting here is I understand the fact that DRM can be used over existing facilities. So I understand the push for DRM is interesting. You don't have to invest that much into converting a station there. You know, DAB Plus is a different band, so it means different antennas, transmitters, a lot of changes, probably a lot more money. But I'm scared about one thing here, and we've seen that in the past with so many types of media, is you get to a point where from country to country, you're going to move from DAB to DRM to, you know, in North America, it's HD radio. We're going to have so many formats. We're going to have, multi-digital format radios now? I think we need to focus and stay. If you're going to use digital, we need to focus, and everybody needs to agree that this is the standard and this is what everybody's going to use.
Yeah, standardization would make sense. But, everybody's got their own little interests going, and they all want their system, and they hope that they'll become the dominant one, I guess. So anyways, they continue the tests. Now we see 2 more countries giving it a shot. We'll see where it all ends up at the end of the day.
So we have some upcoming ham radio contests, and of course today there's an event happening.
Yeah, we hope if you're listening to this show live on Sunday or catch it a little bit later on Sunday, that you will stay by your radios if you're a listener, and maybe go to your ham transceiver if you are a ham operator, because you, Gilles, will be back on the air.
Yes, I'll be once again using the call letters of the Canadian International DS Club amateur station, VE2AQP, and I will be active from here in Montreal. I will be operating from 22 hours Universal Time today, and we'll be going on up to 02 hours Universal Time, so 4 hours of trying to contact whoever is out there, and hopefully get much more contacts than last time. And I think it is going to be better tonight. 40 meters. Now, the frequency, here's the thing. 7150 is where I'm going to start, because that's the frequency we chose and advertised everywhere. But because some licensed amateurs in the U.S. cannot go to 7150, at some point in the 4 hours, I'll move up somewhere around 7220-ish, depending on the activity and who's there. So I'll be mentioning that. So listen to me if you hear me. And I'll be, of course, mentioning when I'm going to move to another frequency so that we can get even more ham stations from the United States that can contact the CIDX club station. So this is going to be a lot of fun. So don't forget, from 22 hours Universal Time to 02 UTC today. That's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm looking forward to having contacts with all of you. Ham radio operators, if you're a shortwave listener, well, listen in, and you know what? You can get a QSL card. We have a special QSL for the event that can be asked at info@cidxclub.ca for a correct report. So you'll get the CIDX EQSL and a free sample copy of the Messenger.
That's right. So we'll also be monitoring the activity. So if you're a Facebook person, the official SWL channel Facebook page or group, and the CIDX group page, and also maybe our International Radio Report Facebook group. We can put some messages on there as you move around the band a little bit, and just keep people aware of where you might be. And hopefully conditions will be good. And if you're a ham or a listener, you can try to pick up Gilles on the radio. The call sign again, Victor Echo 2 Alpha Quebec Papa. Now we have a couple other contests going on next weekend, and the first one is organized by the Indonesian FT8 group, the Batavia FT8 contest, 0-100 August 6th to 23:59 Zulu August 7th. This contest aims to make amateurs around the world contact as many other amateurs and Indonesian contesters as possible. It's 3.5, 7, 14, 21, and 28 megahertz bands, and the mode is FT8 only.
There's the 1010 International Summer Contest, SSB, from 01 Zulu August 6th to 23:59 Zulu August 7. This is organized by the 1010 International Net, 10 meters only, and single sideband.
We have one big contest that has actually been canceled. It's the European HF Championship, organized by the Slovenia Contest Club. They have decided to cancel the event for this year due to the developments in Ukraine and Russia. So they have put that contest on the shelf for this year. So we have the North American QSO Party, CW portion, 1800 Zulu August 6th to 0559 Zulu August 7th. That's organized by the National Contest Journal, 160 through 10 meters, no work bands, and the mode is CW only.
It's going to be an interesting one to monitor, the South African Radio League HF phone contest, 14 Zulu to 17 Zulu August 7th. The aim of the HF contest is for participants to contact as many amateurs in Southern Africa as possible. 20, 40, and 80 meter bands. Mode is SSB.
We should mention that when we mention the times with Zulu, that Zulu is just another term. You can exchange it for UTC. So if some of you are not familiar with or new to shortwave and ham radio, Zulu and UTC basically the same thing.
Yeah, so. GMT also.
GMT also, yeah, with many terms for the same thing.
Absolutely.
Does anybody really know what time it is? I know what time it is. It's time for us to go.
Yep.
Thank you for tuning in here today. We'll do it again next Sunday for our next edition of the show. You can tune us in on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal, and also on our streaming. And check us out on the archives on our YouTube channel, International Radio Report. So do try to contact Gilles if you can later on today, or if you're a listener, tune him in and send in your reception report. We'd be glad to send you one of our nice EQSL cards. Have a great week, everybody. We'll talk to you again next Sunday with our next edition of the show, the International Radio Report on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Sveriges Radio, utlandsprogrammet.